Miles, so the New Orleans Pelicans are going to be 2020 NBA champions. David Griffin, we believe in David Griffin. David Griffin 2020, let's get it. Let's go.
That's not the farthest thing out there.
Where you at?
That's honestly not the farthest thing out there. Like, people are talking about the Lakers are a lock for a championship, and you could make a case for the Pelicans. You really could.
The Pelicans might knock out the Lakers at some point in the playoffs.
It might happen because Zion.
I could see it happening.
I can't wait to see a Zion LeBron matchup. That would be pretty cool.
For context, the 2019 NBA draft just happened 3 days ago, right? Thursday night. It's Sunday night. So Zion taking number 1. I mean, we're just watching the draft in general. I didn't think it was a great TV spectacle. I mean, after the first 3 picks and after the parents stopped crying, I think it kind of lost its flavors. I mean, because you didn't know what was going to happen, right? After 3, you didn't know what was going to happen, and it was kind of anticlimactic for the Hawks to trade up and for all the hoopla around the wrong hat situation. I don't know, but I guess Zion, 6'6", 280, power forward.
I mean he's gonna be a difference maker. He's not LeBron. I mean, just the way that he moves and his game style is not LeBron. He's more of like a slashing Karl Malone. Like, where he's just gonna beat people to death down low. He's a bully ball player for sure. I think he's gonna start. I mean, like, he's gonna start breaking James Harden's free throw records, I think, just because he's actually going to get fouled. I don't know if the NBA actually knows how they're going to contain him.
I think he's Shaq. I mean, if Shaq was 6...
But he's way faster.
Yeah, but if Shaq was 6 inches shorter, he wouldn't be that big of a boy. You know what I mean? I mean, young Shaq had that nice fast twitch. Zion is like that. I mean, he's just not 7 foot tall.
That's true, actually, yeah. I mean, I don't think the NBA has seen anything like Zion. I don't think there's a comparison that I could directly make.
No, you mentioned the way he moves,
combining
laterally, just side to side, the shuffling, the second jump being just a super explosive. I mean, the way he can catch any alley-oop, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to with Lonzo. That's going to be so great. Because Lonzo is such a great lob thrower. He's such a great transition passer.
Lonzo loves to pass the ball. Oh, yeah.
And he's a great rebounding guard, too. So he'll get the rebound, and he'll look for the outlet to Zion on the wing or on the fast break, whatever. And I think Alvin Gentry said it, too, in the press conference. He said, if you get the rebound, Zion, just push it. And if you look at those Alvin Gentry teams in Phoenix, I mean, you can speak on it a little bit more probably than me, but they were up there in pace. They surprised a lot of people, and they played like a team. And I think with the pieces you have in New Orleans, you have a real chance to build something special. So what do you think of Alvin Gentry with the fit with Zion? How is he going to use him?
Yeah, I like the Alvin Gentry fit with this group. Bringing in Josh Hart. I think Alvin Gentry is more of I think he wants to be a defensive-minded coach. And I think that he's got the right guys for it now. Because Zion, we've seen Lonzo get after it defensively. We know Josh Hart's going to get after it.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 17. The shooting guard from West Virginia guy, not afraid to be a defender, not a guy to step in, take a shot, kind of fits that mold, like you're saying.
Yeah, they drafted Jackson Hayes at number 8, which I thought was a good pickup. I mean, they kind of passed on Cam Reddish, but I think it was a good choice. He's gonna take a little bit to develop just because his body's not there.
Or he may not.
I
He
think
may be like these guys who step in right away, like a Zach Collins that you think may take a little bit longer, like a Jarrett Allen. Kind of he compares to those two in my mind. And then those guys came in year 2 or 3 and they really started to contribute. So maybe he takes a while, maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think he stays at the NBA level and gets minutes, but I think it's a couple years before he's really productive. He's just so skinny. I think it's going to be really tough for him, even with the big men in today's league, where they're not like these giant powerhouses like they were in the past. It's a different style of big man in the league. He's fast enough and athletic enough, but I don't think he's quite strong enough yet. But I mean, regardless, I think it was a good pickup because New Orleans needs somebody down there in the paint. They need a center.
What'd you think of unloading Solomon Hill's contract and opening up the cap space? What do you think David Griffin should do with that? Because I kind of have a theory on what you could do with that.
I've been kind of thinking about that, and I think they've got to go. I'd like to see him pick up like a veteran big man. I don't have a name in mind, but that's kind of the spot that I would like a Tyson Chandler, maybe. I don't know.
See,
I don't know if that wouldn't be cap space, I guess, because he's not that expensive, but somebody like that, you know what I mean?
I think when you're looking at cap space, there's a couple different ways you can look at it, right? You could spend it on a max player, right? You can spend it on a couple mid-level guys, or you can hold on to it. And I really like what Brooklyn was able to do with no picks, rebuilding on the fly, right? They were able to get a D'Angelo Russell on the low by absorbing Timofey Mozgov's big contract. They arguably didn't give that much up, 27th pick. That's just kind of a flyer, which is what David Griffin is going to have with all of his picks. He's going to have a flurry of picks. And so if he can flip a pick for a young star and a bad contract, he may just eat that salary while just saying, you know, this may be the kind of budgeting we need to do when we have to pay Zion the real what he deserves in a couple years when he gets his extension and you know, if all these other draft picks hit too, we'll have to extend them, kind of like where Milwaukee is right now in this summer, where they have to re-sign Brogdon, they have to re-sign Middleton, they have to re-sign Lopez, they have to maybe add another piece because it kind of wasn't enough anyways. So I think for New Orleans, it's interesting what you can do with that cap space kind of in general, but I don't know. It's like it's hard to predict what kind of all-star is going to become unhappy in the situation. Like I've been kind of saying Kevin Love for a while. It's like maybe you could get Kevin Love and a Tristan Thompson and you just eat Tristan Thompson's salary for a couple years, but you can still have that Kevin Love impact.
And that's an interesting kind of thought to just sit on salary cap. I don't hate the idea of doing that, especially with the team this young and this new together. Like they've got to figure out some chemistry together, and it might be easier to do that without adding another piece. And
right,
you know, we know that Lonzo and Ingram, Hart, they can play together.
But that's your
but now
core,
they're coming under
right?
a different. Yeah, and they're coming under a different system with Alvin Gentry, and then you're throwing in Zion, who. You know, I like the fact that the Laker guys played with LeBron, so they kind of know what it's like to play with somebody special, like that special. I think bringing in Zion, it's going to kind of be the same as LeBron in that special talent kind of way, but I think it's going to feel way different because Zion is a rookie. I don't think he's going to, well, we know he's not going to be trying to be the GM. So it's going to be, I think, a much better situation for those guys.
Interesting. And kind of to that point, it's like, what was LeBron to those guys but not a guy to bail them out on offense late in the shot clock when you need a bucket? I think with Zion, it's understood that he's going to have the complete greenest of green lights. And so you can have Alonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram create on offense and try and be secondary playmakers or primary playmakers to begin the season. And then you can just kind of dump it off to Zion or create for Zion if he's cutting, if he's posting up, if he's lobbing. It's like he's not going to be bringing up the floor. Like it's not like him in Memphis, right, where Ja is expected to really run the show. It's kind of the perfect scenario, and it's kind of really good team building with David Griffin. Like I keep, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that with the fit with Alvin Gentry, but I don't want to spend too much more time on them. So, lastly, Pelicans. What was your, I guess, is it too late to grade them trading down from 4? Or did you like do you like what the Hawks did and they kind of took their guy that they liked? What did you think of that move? We can kind of transition into the Hawks.
Yeah, I loved what Atlanta did. As far as New Orleans, I think it was smart. I think they knew they wanted Jackson Hayes. So I think it was smart. I think they kind of knew their limitations in what they were going to be able to do with a DeAndre Hunter or Jarrett Culver.
Right. They knew they wanted. Those guys are on the same tier, right? Talk about the Zion tier.
Yeah. They knew they wanted Jackson Hayes. That became pretty clear. I mean, they took him with the number 8, and he could have easily slipped, I think, outside of number 10.
And if you're looking at 6 and 7, both of those guys are not taking Jackson Hayes with Minnesota and Chicago. The front court there is kind of full already. So by trading down, right, you're still getting your guy, like you're saying.
Yeah. So I thought it was smart. And with Atlanta, I thought they drafted perfect. I honestly would have liked to see them take Jarrett Culver over DeAndre Hunter. I don't want to say surprised because I wasn't really. DeAndre Hunter is a great pick for them. But I just feel like Jarrett Culver is going to be more impactful at doing the same thing. And then they picked up Cam Reddish at 10. And those are, I think, 2 guys that can actually work really well together. Along with
also got Bruno Fernando
with Trae Young.
Bruno Fernando at 34 from Maryland, the center out of Maryland. But yeah, like you said, I mean, DeAndre Hunter, right, you're kind of projecting him as at a role, and you're kind of betting on the fact that he's a smart guy, because the rebuilding in Atlanta is really interesting from a personnel fit, because I mean they didn't have to go with Kevin Huerter, but that seems to be working out for them in the long term and in the short term. You know, the addition of Vince Carter last year, and now you bring in DeAndre Hunter from Virginia. There were plenty of instances where he went right at Zion, you know, and he kind of tried to do everything he could to hold his own. There's something to be said about the national championship, especially because it's like, interesting. Are these guys the Florida Gators, or they just flux with NBA talent, or is this like the North Carolina Tar Heels championship teams, or like a Michigan State where it's like fringe NBA role players all playing well together? And we'll see that play out, I guess, for Kyle Guy and Jerome Robinson and their ability to play make for others, because they are going to be point guards now, but DeAndre Hunter is not going to be expected to play make at all. And another point with Atlanta that's interesting is that the Trae Young for Luka Doncic trade is complete, right? Because now you have the 10th overall pick from the Dallas Mavericks turned into Cam Reddish. So now a year later, what do you think that grade is on that trade?
Luka Doncic for Trae Young and Cam Reddish. I think that's pretty fair. Honestly, I think Atlanta probably got the better deal. In the long run, I think Cam Reddish is going to be considered underrated in this draft at number 10. I think he could have gone number 4 without anybody. I mean, he would have gone to Atlanta.
It's hard, right? But is he Paul George, or is he Derek Williams? Is he Jeff Green, or is he Tracy McGrady. It's really hard to kind of to gauge
I mean,
him. Is he Devin Booker, or is he? You know what I mean?
and I think people are kind of like looking at his collegiate career and comparing that to what they're seeing in all of their pro days and things. I would say that it doesn't look like he's that aggressive, but he's a really smooth scorer. Really smooth scorer. I don't see a whole lot of downside from him playing with Zion and RJ Barrett. Number 1 and 3 in the draft. They easily could have gone 1 and 2.
But those are different pieces than Trae Young, right? It's like he's doing different roles with those two dominant players on the team.
I feel like those 3 guys, RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish, all sort of wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to do it in a little bit of a different way, but they're interchangeable pieces.
Wing bigs, playmaker.
Yeah.
The wing big playmaker.
Yeah. And Cam Reddish is capable of slashing to the rim, but I think he's a better perimeter player than RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett's a terrific slasher. He's an incredible finisher. I think that's what we're going to see in New York.
But to that point, it's like the man is Zion and the man in Atlanta will be Trae Young. And so just right there, fundamentally, you have two different styles of being the man. And it's like Trae Young will be able to play make for others. He's such a good passer, like a Steve Nash. He's really better than Curry was at that age too, because Curry's kind of a shooting guard and Trae Young is a pure point, better combo. But like I said, Cam Reddish will be able to benefit from that.
Absolutely.
Bobbing up and slashing and playmaking. So
I think Atlanta has kind of the core of a future championship team. And the way that they're building it
are they a playoff team in 2020?
I kind of doubt it.
If the Nets take a step backwards by just signing Kyrie, no Kevin Durant. If the Orlando Magic take a step backwards from not signing Vucevic back to a contract. If the Toronto Raptors take a step backwards from the Toronto Raptors. If Victor Oladipo is not the same in Indiana. If the Knicks strike out in free agency.
Sure, that's a lot of things.
If Miami doesn't get any better. Right. Okay, I see your point. So instead of the speculation, let's go back to the draft. So I haven't really heard any analysis from Minnesota at 6 with Jared Culver. You're a guy that's really high on him. So what does this mean for Minnesota moving forward by taking a guy like him? Because they kind of tried to do this with Chris Dunn not too long ago. What's the fit with Ryan Saunders?
What I'm kind of concerned about,
Buddy Hield, DeMarcus Cousins situation 2.0.
To be honest, I think he can fill in for what Jimmy Butler was doing for them. Maybe not immediately or quite that same level of impact, but to me, that's kind of where he's headed, is like a Jimmy Butler type of role player, like a superstar role player, if you will. Because Jimmy Butler really hasn't been the man since he left Chicago, I would say. He's been joining other super teams, trying to figure out where he belongs in the league. I'm kind of concerned about Minnesota in general and their, like, how serious they're really trying to be. I can't figure out Karl Anthony Towns, because that's the guy that people are looking to. And I think that Jared Culver can kind of buy into that level of goofiness of that Karl Anthony Towns. I think it's possible that he'll be kind of molded to be like a typical Minnesota Timberwolves.
It's funny you say that, because I think there's something to be said when a guy chooses to play for his hometown, like Trae Young playing in Oklahoma, growing up in Norman, and Jared Culver growing up in Lubbock, playing in Texas Tech. So it's like those guys are loyal and those guys are willing to put the work in, and they know that you could really make a brand name for yourself, what have you, wherever you want, as long as you just ball out and put the work in, and like a true professional. And that's kind of what Minnesota really needs moving forward. I agree. He's going to be a good player for them. So Ja Morant is interesting in Memphis because he comes in and he immediately shouts out Mike Conley saying, hey, I got a lot of big shoes to fill. When I see Ja Morant, I kind of see Dwayne Wade with the jump shot. I mean, he's got a really nice stroke, but when you see him, he's just long and athletic and dunking over people, but making the right play. He's got that pick and roll vision where it's like he can make passes at so many different angles, where the guy that he's rolling with really is fortunate just to be able to react and just kind of do his job because he'll be set up so well. I don't really have a question, but Memphis is looking good too, but they need a couple more pieces. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they sold out in order to make Ja Morant their like main guy, their
Right.
main point guard at least. They want him to be running that team, so there's quite a bit of pressure on him. He seems like the kind of guy that can handle it. At least that's what I really hope. I don't really want to. What I definitely don't want to see is like a Markelle Fultz situation where there's an organization that is sort of like betting on you to take them to the next level. And then he's not able to kind of like step into that and accept that. Like Markelle Fultz stepping into Philadelphia, everyone was kind of thinking like, oh man, the process is nearly complete. We got Markelle Fultz now, and he's going to be able to find that connection to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and everything's going to fall together.
But they don't have those kinds of pieces in Memphis. They just have Jaren Jackson. He's really young.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like, I think the same level of pressure kind of goes with Ja Morant being the number 2 pick and them just getting rid of Mike Conley.
Oh, they're giving him the keys to the city in Memphis.
Yeah, and then they picked up Kyle Korver.
It's interesting that both of those franchises, Memphis isn't that far from Murray, Kentucky, which is where he went to school, and New Orleans isn't that far from South Carolina. So it's so interesting how, like you said, both of those players with franchise kind of weighing. Actually, maybe RJ Barrett too. He's kind of a guy that where the franchise is, he's carrying the whole weight of the franchise pretty much. But RJ Barrett kind of being from Toronto, New York, those are kind of comparable. It's interesting, right? How the first 3 picks kind of aligned like that, where guys are with franchises that kind of reflect who they are as people, what they're kind of exposed to. It's just interesting.
Yeah, close to home. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so being where you're from, Phoenix Suns traded down from 6. They did not want to take Kobe White. They did a couple interesting things. They actually got Saric from the Timberwolves, right, in a trade. They traded away TJ Warren, where we just said recently how you actually liked him, which was interesting.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They have cap space too now, right?
Yeah.
So they trade down from 6. They take Cam Johnson at 11, and they take Ty Jerome at 24. So those are the 2 guards you're going with, except Cam Johnson's not a point guard. So Ty Jerome's the point guard of the Suns.
I mean, what I have to think is that they're trying to bag a big name point guard at free agency. I mean, them not taking Kobe White, it doesn't make any sense unless they think they've got a legitimate chance at like a D'Angelo Russell maybe, or I mean, that's the name I've been hearing the most.
Kemba.
is that Phoenix is trying to get D'Angelo Russell, most recently at least. I wouldn't mind seeing Kemba go to Phoenix, but I mean Phoenix is a little bit of a mess. Just like trying to figure out all the pieces. It seems like it shouldn't be that hard to find a point guard that would be like, yeah, wow, Phoenix literally has everything except a point guard.
What about if the Lakers get D'Angelo Russell in free agency and Pat Beverly is sitting there with a not good contract offer from both Chicago and from the LA Clippers? You bring him in Phoenix, what does it look like?
Oh man,
You're like the biggest Pat Beverly fan out there.
I love Pat Beverly on all 30 NBA teams. He makes them a contender. Pat Beverly, yeah. I mean, he's not like the greatest of playmaking point guards, but he makes things happen. And his play is kind of contagious. So I'd like to see how Phoenix would react to Pat Beverly being on the floor. I don't know if we've ever seen, like, we know Devin Booker is competitive and he's confident and he's not afraid to get in players' faces, but he definitely doesn't want to fight. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, it seems like he's like walking the walk, or talking the talk rather, and not, I don't know. There's just something about Devin Booker that he doesn't have that dog in him that Pat Beverly has. So I think putting him right next to Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and these guys that are kind of like, it seems like they're lacking motivation. Like they've got all the money in the world and they're just like, we could go to the playoffs, but, and if they put Pat Beverly in there, he's just going to light that candle.
So they took Ty Jerome with Nasir Little, Kendall Johnson still on the board. That's kind of, and Carson Edwards too, who I think is kind of going to be a really big steal for the Boston Celtics. And I kind of thought Carson Edwards would be a kind of a good fit here too, although he's kind of more of a shooting guard who's a small guy.
And Kendall I personally would have gone Kendall Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I would have gone with that. I mean, he kind of like fits the typical player that's in Phoenix right now, which is long, athletic, can kind of play multiple positions.
I guess that's kind of well, they took that position at need, that long, that you're describing at 11 with Cam Johnson, right? That's the long wing shooter. Yeah. Opposite Mikal Bridges, because Mikal will probably be your defensive anchor after you get rid of Josh Jackson. You have Devin Booker out there, so that's 3.
Mikal Bridges, yeah. That just made me like the Pat Beverly option even more. I think Pat Beverly, Mikal Bridges, that would be a gnarly defensive backcourt right there.
So Boston,
what are they doing?
They were also really active on draft night. They take Romeo Langford for 14, which right there, I love. I really like Romeo Langford. I think he's going to be a star. Indiana native, goes to India. You know, I just love when in-home state kids stay in home and they go to that school. Romeo Langford plays for Indiana University from Indiana. Plays through hand injury. And did you watch any of Indiana? They didn't have anything out there. What do you mean he doesn't have a jump shot? Yeah, because guys are really up in his face because they know that he can get by him. Everybody in the gym knew that the 19-year-old 6'7" wing was the best player on the court. Danny Ainge saw that when he watched the film. And I don't know why everybody's ripping him at 14. It's a good flyer. And at the board, who else could take? Oh, Sekou Doumbouya from France, Chuma Okeke, guy's not even going to play for another year. It's like, who else could you take at 14 that could have justified that? Darius Baisley? I don't think so. Not with LeBron's crew. He's not going to Boston. Would you think of 14?
I really did like the Romeo Langford pickup. That one I would not complain about at all. That's probably who I would have gone with. I thought he was the best pickup at 14. I don't know who would.
Brandon Clark,
I don't
maybe
know.
of Gonzaga. Since you traded Aaron Baines away to Phoenix,
I don't know.
Dario Saric is another. I mean, Phoenix is just so weird, but we're on to Boston now, I guess, too. So they also traded from 20 that Matisse Thybulle traded down
That's the one.
to Grant Williams. Kind of the same player, except Grant Williams is 40 pounds heavier.
Because I'm not exactly sure what all went down, but they did trade Matisse Thybulle for Dario Saric, right? That was a trade that I heard about first, and then he ended up in Phoenix, and I'm not exactly sure how it all went down.
Right. But
Number
for
11 traded to the Suns. Wolves get number 6. Somehow it happened. They tied in the Celtics somehow. Anyway, Thybulle was the one I was really excited about. So when I saw them draft Romeo Langford and then Thybulle, I was like, oh man, Danny Ainge, he's a genius. A genius.
because those guys seem to be
Those
good
two
fits
guys,
next to each other, maybe.
yeah. I mean, that's an incredible backcourt in the future, at least. And that's kind of like a low pressure kind of a situation where you're not drafting like Zion Williamson, where everybody knows and expects that he's supposed to be the man. You're drafting Romeo Langford at 14. You're like, if it doesn't pan out, okay. But if it does, you're a genius. That's kind of the way that I looked at it. It wasn't like a really high pressure situation for Boston. The fact that they traded him away, I don't understand. That's where I got really lost with Boston. I thought they made a great pickup. And then I don't know why they'd draft him at 20 if they were going to trade him. I'm very confused, and I'm a little bit hurt because I wanted Portland to have him. I don't know what Boston's doing. I'm struggling the most to figure out what Boston is trying to do. Phoenix is second on my list, where I just have no idea what is going on. And I need to be closer to the situation. I might have to call a general manager.
Well, Elton Brand saw Matisse Thybulle and said, that's a guy that we need on the defensive side to go up against these Giannis and these Kawhis out here. And we need him to be the kind of versatile guy that can just step in as a, as a senior, step in and be a role player right away, like a Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah, I don't know. Boston's just, I mean, I like Grant Williams, and he may be a good Celtic. I mean, if you're trying to kind of picture him as the Al Horford or a half of Al Horford's replacement, a quarter of Al Horford's replacement, I don't really know. But another guy in that kind of range is Darius Bazley that I really, really liked. We talked about him like a year ago or so when he signed that New Balance deal. That was kind of revolutionary because LeBron, for all the criticism LeBron takes, it's like, look, he saw a guy that had people around him commit NCAA violations so that he couldn't play. It really wasn't his fault. And LeBron saw a good, nice kid with single parent, kind of like he saw a little bit of himself in Darius Bazley probably. Saw the skill, saw the talent, saw the wingspan, saw the height that we all see, took a chance, got him an internship at New Balance and essentially a shoe deal with the help of Rich Paul and the influence of Rich Paul. And look, now it's paid off. And for LeBron, it's a way to get your son or future clutch clients into the first round without going to college at all. And it's really kind of revolutionary. Not many people are talking about it. But he didn't have to go to prep school for a year. He didn't have to. He just prepared for the camp. This is the Mitchell Robinson, I guess, 2.0. So he's 6'9", 210, almost a 7-foot wingspan. Going to Oklahoma City kind of actually concerns me. I saw what they did to Perry Jones and to Grant. Jeremy Grant. It's like those kinds of molds he's not going to get the ball put in his hands. He's not going to be able to play make, which I think would be kind of his strengths. He's going to come in and try and be a role player on a playoff team, which is going to be hard to do. Maybe they could stash him in the G League. Hopefully that's kind of what I'm thinking of for a year. I don't know. I guess that's just. I don't know if you want
I
to go
kind
to.
of like the idea of. I
after
kind of
that.
like the idea of. I like the idea of him going to Thunder. To be honest, I was going to mention Jeremy Grant too because I thought Jeremy Grant actually played well at the end of the year. I thought he started to step into a role with the Thunder and kind of like figure out how to fit in around Russell Westbrook and Paul George, and also Steven Adams in the paint, which is a really tough. That's really tough to find your place on the floor. Baisley is stepping into like a really difficult situation, but he's also stepping into a place where, I mean, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and a guy like Jeremy Grant, who I think can really help those guys or help Baisley. I think that's a pretty incredible opportunity for him, especially being in tight with LeBron James. I mean, he's going to be an A-lister for years to come.
Well, now he'll probably be a good understudy of Westbrook. You know, you're right. Maybe there's a good way to look at it. So we kind of skipped picks 13 through 19, 20. If anything stands out, I mean, San Antonio takes a Croatian big man, probably can shoot the lights out. The Pacers take a Georgian guy. Orlando at 16 takes Chuma Okeke, ACL. Tyler Hero, pretty much Tyler Johnson 2.0, which I think he picked up his option at Phoenix too, right? He's in Phoenix. Johnson, Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's another guy in Phoenix. He can be your point guard. But if anything doesn't stand out, we can go to Nasir Little, 25, falling all the way to the Portland Trail Blazers, where they don't have to trade. They were, I guess, reportedly, they had him 12th on the board. Miles, why did he slip?
I don't know. This was a strange draft in that kind of a way. I mean, Nasir Little, he's a pretty solid defensive player. He can definitely score. I was confused when I saw him slip that far. I mean, 6'6", and he's got a 7'1" wingspan. I think he's got really good potential. That's like almost the same measurements as Matisse Thybulle. He might be able to fill the needs of Portland's lacking defense. But the way upside that I see, like the difference between him and a Matisse Thybulle, is that Nasir Little can score. Like, he has great potential to be a good scoring guy off the bench in a second unit.
I mean, he
Portland.
was the MVP of the McDonald's All-American game with 28 points. Inconsistent in the Roy Williams offense, but let me tell you something. It's not like very many freshmen come into that North Carolina system and have success right off the bat. I think Kobe White is kind of the, I guess, what's the outlier? But I mean, you look at a Harrison Barnes, and he kind of had to come back for his sophomore year, and he really didn't develop all that much. And maybe it was good for Nasir to turn pro a year early. Maybe a different school would have developed him a little bit better or used him a little bit better. But like you said, I mean, I'm looking at NBA Draft.net. And his pro comparison is Gerald Wallace, and if he can be anything like that, they have his potential at 9 out of 10. He's gonna be a playoff. He's gonna come in for a playoff team like a Portland, where they are used to developing within. I think I was watching Neil O'Shea's press conference live after he drafted Little, and one of the things that he said was, we found that and I'm paraphrasing, free throw shooting translates better to NBA shooting than college 3-point shooting, which is interesting. And so just watching all of those clips of Little's form, his form's not broken. So those things combined with the fact that you kind of look at Aminu and Harkless's production, especially from the 3-point line, and even Myers Leonard. Honestly, everybody who goes to Portland is shooting a little bit better, and even a Rodney Hood, he couldn't make anything with Cleveland in the playoffs, and now he comes to Portland and he's a spot-up 3-point shooter. It's like there may be something to be said. I have hope. I haven't had hope the first couple of days, but it's like I don't know who else they could have taken after him, because it's like the Phoenix question: who do you take after him? Like a Kendall Johnson doesn't really fit. I mean, he's kind of the perfect fit at that point.
Yeah, and I think by far he was the best player on the board at that point.
Kevin Porter, I really like Kevin Porter from USC.
I don't know how much they even thought about it when they were drafting him. They're like, "Oh, Nasir Little's still on the board."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I think he's going to be a really good 3-and-D player, and not maybe like a traditional 3-and-D, but sort of like a new hybrid.
Like Al-Farouq Aminu, kind of the same mold, right?
Yeah. I think he's better than Aminu.
Yeah,
just
especially
quicker.
Offensively.
Yeah, quicker. I think he's more physical. He's going to be better on the glass. I really like the pick.
So, any second-round pick stand out to you? Was there anything that kind of you took your eye at and you looked at? I mean, Boston takes 2 point guards, essentially. Carson Edwards at 33, Tremont Waters, the 5'11", 175-pound point guard out of LSU sophomore at 51. And that, to me, those were kind of 2 picks that stands out, just saying to me that that either he's expecting Terry Rozier to be the starter, or he kind of thinks he can get a different starter elsewhere, and those guys will be vying for backup roles, or if it'll just be a point guard by committee role. It's just interesting.
And that's the thing about Boston is they've got, like, it seems like options everywhere you turn, but they're not really making a decision anywhere. Like Terry Rozier, to me, was their point guard. Like, give him the reins. You know he's good enough. Drafting point guards doesn't seem like a terrible idea, but it's... I just become speechless when I start talking about Boston. I have no idea what they're doing.
So what about anything else from the second round?
So Bol going to Denver.
Yep.
And he went number 44.
Crazy.
Now, I said he would slip because I didn't think he was a lottery player, but I did not think he would slip that far.
Well, what other teams in the could have taken gambles on him like that? What other teams are kind of in the same mindset as the Denver Nuggets in that sense? Because the Nuggets traded up to draft him, right? So I guess at that point in the second round, any team could have theoretically trade up and draft him. It's just a second round pick. So why is it Denver that happens to be the franchise to do it?
Fair question. I was surprised to see it. I don't know what Denver exactly wants with Bol outside of it. Definitely changes their second unit if they can get another 7-footer to run the floor like that, or even maybe take some pressure off of Jokic. Like Jokic doesn't necessarily, he's not a good runner. So playing that up-tempo style, he gets tired, but he's a really good outlet passer. So for him to get a rebound and then just throw the ball up the floor, I think Bol is going to be able to actually run the floor. And that gives them a 7-footer right underneath the rim in transition, and then allows Jokic to kind of trail play and hit threes from like a trailing power forward kind of a situation.
You texted me
Um,
about Jalen Hands.
That's a steal of the draft in my mind.
56
At
to
56,
the Clippers.
is that where he finally landed? I saw him bouncing all around. I saw him. Keldon Johnson went to San Antonio, right?
Right.
And that's an interesting pick for them because he's going to be alongside DeJounte Murray, which I kind of like. That's two really long guards
They also
that I think
take Quindary Weatherspoon, a guy that can maybe make the roster from Mississippi State, 6'4" guard, senior.
San Antonio is so good at drafting too. I think Keldon Johnson is going to be an immediate impact player playing in San Antonio's system like that. I think he's going to be. That was a really good pick. But Jalen Hands, yeah. I mean, he was up there in my mind with like Romeo Langford. That's where I saw them, like the same draft class. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jalen Hands was
Also another highly recruited guy.
it was IMG Academy, right?
No, I'm not sure.
Let me look real quick. I know he was an
Yeah.
All-American. Oh, just kidding.
Well,
Okay, California.
It was clear that his UCLA stint wasn't the best. And that kind of arguably drove out the LaMelo Ball situation, because I remember he was the guy that was coming in to be the point guard of the future at UCLA, and Ball would be coming in and to kind of competing with him at this point, but obviously that's not the case.
So
Yeah.
Jalen Hands is going to Brooklyn in a trade from the Clippers.
Really? Interesting.
I think he's going to be really good. He's a really good finisher. Tremendous athlete. I couldn't believe when I saw him slip to 56. I think there's been one out of at least every draft in the last few years where you're going, or you see somebody like a Isaiah Thomas drafted number 60, Manu Ginobili drafted number 60. That was a long time ago, but there's definitely like second round picks, late second round picks, even undrafted players that are coming in and making a huge impact.
I thought Lewis King was from Oregon would be a guy that would come in and get drafted, because he by the tournament time he was the guy that kind of was all of the offense on Oregon, and opposing coaches were really game planning against him. I guess he didn't take some of the interview process serious enough, and that kind of got around, hurt his stock a little bit. But if you're talking about a 6'8" freshman who can score and do all the things you want offensively, that's a guy I would look at. And I don't know where he went after getting undrafted. But I guess before we end, Miles, give me your top 5 next year. Who do you think is going to be in the bottom of the league? Who do you think is going to be the top 5 worst teams? Potential contenders include Washington if Bradley Beal gets hurt. You always got your Cleveland, New York, Memphis.
At this point, I'm seeing the Clippers being not good. If they can't get Pat Beverly back,
and Kawhi and KD.
I'm having doubts about them being able to pick up somebody in free agency, because their teams, in my mind, that was the draw. Like Pat Beverly and incredible defense, awesome role players, and then you put a superstar right in the middle of that. No changes. But they changed it. They're not the same Clippers that they were when they went to the playoffs. Yeah, they still have Doc Rivers, but it's not the same team, not the same fire. I think the
Free
Clippers are going to be at
agency
the
hasn't
bottom.
happened yet. They could still get
I,
Pat Beverly back.
yeah, they still could. It sounds like he wants to go to Dallas. So I'm speculating, and if I have to come up with who's going to
Pat
be at the
Beverly
bottom
and
of the league,
Al Horford to Dallas.
yeah, if I'm speculating who's going to be at the bottom of the league, I kind of want to be bold and say the Clippers. Even though I would love for the Clippers to re-sign Beverly,
Naturally.
take a good free agent, and then make a good playoff run. At this rate, Phoenix again.
Yep.
I think Atlanta will be near the bottom just because they're so young.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask for them to start winning games and being, even if they get 30 wins, it's still probably
Yeah.
lottery. So that's
I think
three. I think New York's not going to get a lot better next year. And I think Cleveland.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. Cleveland.
I don't think Darius Garland's going to be a lot in the win share column, especially if you get it. Kevin Love back. There's not much there. Maybe John Beilein turns it around. I don't know. It's not.
The Wizards did sign Rui Hachimura, though. I like that. I don't trust the Wizards for anything, but
I do like
I
him.
like him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good. Although he could be Derek Williams.
That's true, but Derek Williams is killing it in where is he?
Belgium.
He's playing like EuroLeague, like big time, Final Four.
Exactly. Well, I think winners, if we want to just randomly do winners of the draft are teams who are young and rebuilding and who are their young players got a year better. So Nuggets with Michael Porter Jr. I would say
Bobo.
The Hawks. Yeah, because it's like when you take an asset, when you buy a stock or something that you don't even see the return on for a couple years. It's like that's what it is. So we'll see Michael Porter Jr. as a guy from this class who might be contending for Rookie of the Year, especially on how they use him. But Anthony Simons, I guess, out of Portland, he's been having rave reviews this summer. And if he balls out in Summer League, I think you could really start to pencil him as another guy who, like I said, is just a team. You just got to build around your young guys and see what happens. But I guess we got a week till free agency, Miles. We can do a couple more episodes before then, pure speculative. See what any rumors come out. Just go from there.
Yep. Let the dust settle from the draft and then let it sort itself out. Figure out what Boston's doing.
Before we preview the NBA Summer League.
Yeah.
Which is now an event.
Yeah.
We'll have to go one year. That'd be so much fun.
I think I'm actually going to be in Vegas during that time.
Oh my gosh, you're going to have to go. Check it out at least if you have time.
When is it? Is it like between the 4th and the 10th? That's when I'm going to be there.
I don't know.
Anyway, maybe I'll go.
Anyways, ball out.
Later.
Later.